Right now, I want you to try something that will prove to you that ancient knowledge isn't just mythology, it's neuroscience we're only beginning to understand. Without moving your head, slowly roll your eyes upward and slightly inward, as if you're trying to look at the center of your forehead from the inside. Hold this position for 10 seconds. Feel that subtle pressure building behind your forehead, that gentle tingling sensation spreading across your temples. You just activated your pineal gland using a technique the Egyptian mystery schools guarded for millennia. What you experienced isn't placebo, it's the direct result of specific extraocular muscles creating pressure changes that stimulate the pineal through fascial connections. The Egyptians didn't just stumble onto this. They mapped an entire sequence of eye movements, each targeting different aspects of what we now call the endocrine system. But here's what most people miss. That single movement you just performed is only one piece of a complete activation sequence. Without the full pattern, the effect fades within minutes. The Egyptians encoded this entire system into the Eye of Horus symbol, a neurological roadmap disguised as religious iconography. Today, you're going to learn exactly how to decode and apply their complete method. I know what you're thinking right now. That tingling sensation you just felt when you tried the eye movement from the previous section. You're wondering if it's real or if it's just your imagination playing tricks on you. Let me put that doubt to rest immediately. What you experienced is documented neuroscience, not mysticism or placebo effect. When you rolled your eyes upward in that specific pattern, you activated a cascade of measurable neurological events that researchers have been studying for decades. The extraocular muscles, those 6 tiny muscles that control your eye movements, aren't just moving your eyeballs around randomly. They're generating bioelectrical impulses that travel along very specific neural pathways, creating what neuroscientists call oculomotor induced neuroplasticity. Here's what actually happened in your brain. Those upward eye movements stimulated the superior rectus and inferior oblique muscles, which sent electrical signals through the oculomotor nerve directly into your brainstem. From there, these impulses traveled along established neural highways straight to the geometric center of your brain, exactly where your pineal gland sits waiting. But here's where it gets fascinating. Your pineal gland isn't just some vestigial organ that pumps out melatonin when it's time for bed. Modern neuroscience has discovered something that would make the ancient Egyptians smile knowingly. This tiny, pine cone-shaped structure has piezoelectric properties. That means it can convert mechanical pressure and electrical stimulation into measurable electromagnetic fields. Think about that for a moment. You have a crystalline structure in your brain that literally transforms electrical input into electromagnetic output. It's like having a biological radio transmitter sitting at the exact center of your consciousness. The scientific literature is crystal clear on this. Studies on reptiles, amphibians, and certain fish species show that their pineal glands still function as literal photoreceptive organs, actual third eyes that detect light and electromagnetic frequencies directly through the skull. In lampreys, this organ sits right on top of their heads, with a clear cornea and everything. Evolution didn't eliminate this capacity in humans, it just moved it inside and changed its function. Dr. Rick Strassman's research at the University of New Mexico revealed that the human pineal gland produces not just melatonin, but also dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the same compound that creates profound altered states of consciousness. But here's what most people don't know. DMT, production in the pineal gland, increases dramatically when specific neural pathways are activated through precise eye movements and focused attention. EEG studies have shown exactly what happens to your brainwaves when you perform these ancient eye movement techniques. Researchers at Stanford measured participants' brain activity while they practiced various forms of upward gaze meditation. Within minutes, they documented a measurable transition from beta waves, your normal waking consciousness, down into alpha and theta states, typically associated with deep meditation and enhanced creativity. This isn't spiritual mumbo-jumbo. This is your nervous system responding to specific physical inputs exactly as it was designed to do. The principle that attention goes, energy flows isn't some new age concept. It's basic neuroscience. When you focus your attention on any part of your body, blood flow to that region increases by up to 40%. Focused attention literally increases electrical activity, oxygen, delivery, and nutrient supply to whatever you're concentrating on. Neuroscientists call this attention-induced neuroplasticity, and it's been documented in thousands of studies. When you direct your gaze upward and focus your attention on the center of your brain, you're essentially pressing a physical button that increases blood flow and electrical activity in that exact region. It's like giving your pineal gland a direct energy boost. But there's another crucial mechanism at work here that connects directly to your autonomic nervous system. When you raise your eyes upward, you're actually triggering an ancient evolutionary response that immediately begins shutting down your fight or flight system. This isn't coincidence. It's hardwired neurological programming that goes back millions of years. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. When would our ancestors have naturally looked upward? When they were safe, when they were contemplating, when they were in states of wonder or reverence. The upward gaze became neurologically associated with safety, reflection, and expanded awareness. Your nervous system still carries this programming. Modern neuroscience has identified the specific neural pathway responsible for this response. The upward eye movement activates the parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve, which immediately begins countering stress hormones and shifting your brain into what researchers call rest and digest mode. It's like hitting an emergency system reboot button for your entire nervous system. Dr. Andrew Huberman's research at Stanford has shown that specific eye movements can shift your nervous system state within seconds. When you look up and slightly converge your gaze, exactly as described in those ancient Egyptian texts, you're activating what he calls the physiological sigh response, but through visual input rather than breathing. Here's the problem. Our modern lifestyle has essentially switched off this natural biological antenna through complete disuse. We spend our days looking down at screens, forward at traffic, or straight ahead at televisions. When's the last time you spent significant time looking upward with focused intention? Your pineal gland has been sitting dormant, like a radio that's never been properly tuned. Environmental factors have made this worse. Fluoride exposure, electromagnetic pollution from wireless devices, and artificial lighting all interfere with pineal gland function. But the biggest factor is simply that we've forgotten how to activate it naturally. What the ancient Egyptians understood, and what modern neuroscience is now confirming, is that these weren't spiritual practices at all. They were sophisticated biotechnology disguised as mysticism. The Eye of Horus wasn't a religious symbol. It was an instruction manual for activating specific neurological hardware that every human being possesses. The next time someone tells you this is just placebo effect, remind them that placebo effects don't show up on EEG machines, don't increase blood flow to specific brain regions, and don't trigger measurable changes in neurotransmitter production. What you're experiencing is your nervous system responding exactly as evolution designed it to respond. The ancient mystery schools weren't teaching religion, they were teaching applied neuroscience. And now you understand the mechanism behind their most closely guarded secret. You've felt that tingling in your pineal gland. You understand the neurological pathways at work. But now we need to talk about something that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. That symbol you see everywhere, on jewelry, tattoos, movie posters, album covers. The Eye of Horus isn't decoration. It's not mystical protection or ancient bling. It's a precision instrument manual for consciousness navigation that most people wear around their necks without having any clue what they're actually carrying. Here's what really happened in the mythology and why it matters to your direct experience right now. Horus, the sky god, loses his left eye in battle with Set, the force of chaos and fragmentation. This isn't some bedtime story from ancient Egypt. This is a detailed map of exactly what's happened to human consciousness, and more importantly, how to fix it. Think about how you actually perceive reality on any given day. You're either stuck in pure logic mode, analyzing, categorizing, trying to figure everything out with your rational mind, or you're caught up in pure intuition, feeling your way through situations without any grounding in practical reality. Sound familiar? You're living with fragmented perception, just like Horus, with his damaged eye. Most people spend their entire lives bouncing between these two incomplete ways of seeing, never integrating them into unified vision. The restoration of Horus's eye by Thoth, that's the real treasure map. Thoth doesn't just magically heal the eye. He teaches the precise process of reintegration through specific practices that you can do right now, today, with nothing but your own awareness and eye movements. Your eyes aren't just windows to the soul, they're the joystick for your consciousness. Every subtle adjustment in gaze direction accesses different information channels, different brain frequencies, different layers of awareness that most people never even know exist. Let's break down the actual directional map that Egyptian mystery schools taught as advanced spiritual technology. This isn't theory, this is practical navigation. Center upward eye position. When you gently guide your eyes toward the center of your forehead and slightly upward, maintaining soft focus, you're activating what the Egyptians called the eternal now channel. This isn't just present moment awareness, it's present moment anchoring with enhanced mental clarity. Try it right now. Eyes, center upward, breathe naturally, and notice how your mental chatter doesn't just quiet down, it becomes organized, purposeful. You're accessing the brain frequency where scattered thoughts integrate into coherent understanding. The energy shift is subtle but unmistakable. That sense of mental fog lifting, of being able to think clearly without effort, that's your consciousness settling into its natural navigation mode, instead of being tossed around by random mental content. Now we move to upward right eye positioning. This is where things get interesting. When you guide your gaze upward and gently to the right, you're opening what ancient practitioners called the soul memory channel. This isn't about remembering what you had for breakfast. This is transpersonal memory access, information that extends beyond your individual lifetime experience. The instruction is precise: eyes upward, right, but not strain. Soft focus, like you're looking through the upper right corner of your visual field rather than at it. Hold this position with gentle intention and notice what kind of information starts flowing. It's not visual imagery necessarily, it's more like sudden knowing, recognition of patterns that feel familiar even though you've never consciously learned them. This is the channel for accessing soul-level wisdom, the deeper intelligence that operates beyond personality and individual identity. Upward left positioning opens an entirely different information stream. The Egyptians called this future perception, but it's not fortune-telling. When you guide your gaze gently upward and to the left, you're accessing probability sensing, the ability to perceive potential outcomes based on current energy patterns and momentum. Again, the technique requires precision. Eyes upward left, soft focus, breathing naturally, don't force anything. The information that comes through this channel feels different from memory or present moment awareness. It's like sensing the direction energy wants to flow, recognizing which choices lead toward expansion and which lead toward contraction, long before you could figure it out logically. What makes this so powerful is that you're not passively receiving whatever random thoughts and impressions happen to float through your awareness. You're actively directing your consciousness experience, choosing which information channels to access based on what you actually need in any given moment. Need clarity on a complex situation? Center upward positioning gives you organized thinking and present moment grounding. Trying to understand deeper patterns in your life? Upward right accesses the soul-level perspective that sees beyond individual circumstances. Facing a major decision? Upward left lets you sense the energetic consequences of different choices before you're committed to any particular path. This is why Egyptian mystery schools taught these practices as advanced spiritual technology. They understood that consciousness isn't fixed, it's navigable. Most people live their entire lives as passengers in their own awareness, experiencing whatever thoughts, emotions, and perceptions happen to arise. But when you master the directional map of the Eye of Horus, you transform from passenger to pilot. The precision matters more than you might expect. These aren't broad eye movements or dramatic gestures. We're talking about subtle adjustments with focused intention. The difference between accessing clear information and just moving your eyes around randomly is the quality of attention you bring to the practice. Each angle activates different neural networks, different brain frequencies, different aspects of the electromagnetic field around your pineal gland that we discussed in the previous section. When you combine the neurological understanding with the practical directional map, you're working with thousands of years of refined consciousness technology that's been tested and verified by countless practitioners. The Egyptian mystery schools didn't teach this information to everyone. This was advanced curriculum, reserved for students who had already demonstrated the discipline and discernment to use these tools responsibly. They understood that the ability to consciously navigate different states of awareness comes with responsibility, both to yourself and to the collective field of consciousness we all share. But here's what they couldn't have anticipated. You're living in a time when this knowledge isn't just useful, it's essential. The fragmented perception that the Horus mythology describes isn't just an individual challenge anymore. It's become a collective crisis, and the solution isn't political or technological. The solution is consciousness integration, one person at a time, starting with you mastering the navigation system that's been available all along. Here's something that'll completely shift how you understand human consciousness. Every single ancient culture on this planet independently discovered the exact same eye movement technology. We're not talking about cultural diffusion or trade routes spreading ideas. We're talking about separate civilizations, isolated by oceans and millennia, all arriving at identical conclusions about how your visual system unlocks expanded awareness. Let me take you into the Amazon rainforest first. When a Shipibo shaman begins any healing ceremony, watch their eyes. Before they touch a single plant medicine, before they sing their first Ikaro, they close their eyes and raise their gaze upward, not in prayer to some external deity. That's the Western misinterpretation. They're activating an internal navigation system. The same exact gesture happens in Siberian shamanic traditions, among the Sami people of northern Scandinavia, and with Native American vision quest protocols across dozens of tribes who had zero contact with each other. Your brain doesn't care about cultural context. Neurologically, this upward eye movement triggers the same measurable shift from survival-focused beta waves to receptive alpha and theta states in every human nervous system, regardless of whether you're in Peru, Mongolia, or Arizona. The EEG readings are virtually identical across cultures because we're dealing with hardwired human neurology, not learned behavior. Think about what this means. These weren't random cultural practices or superstitious rituals. These were precise technologies developed through pure observation of consciousness itself. Your ancestors were conducting neurological experiments without fancy equipment, mapping the relationship between eye position and brain states through direct experience. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Look at how animals navigate expanded awareness. An eagle doesn't just fly high for better hunting, though that's part of it. When an eagle soars at altitude, it's reading energy currents invisible from ground level, thermal columns, wind patterns, electromagnetic fields from mountain ranges. That elevated perspective provides strategic information completely unavailable to ground-bound creatures. Your ancestors understood this principle intimately. Physical elevation of the gaze creates cognitive elevation of awareness. They lived under night skies we can barely imagine today. No light pollution, no electromagnetic interference, just pure cosmic radiation streaming directly into their visual cortex. They used upward gazing as literal cosmic alignment, treating the star patterns not as distant decorations, but as a living book for consciousness expansion. The Dogon people of Mali could see stellar systems invisible to the naked eye under our current conditions. The Polynesian navigators could feel magnetic field variations through their visual system during extended stargazing sessions. The evolutionary psychology here is crucial to understand. When you look down or straight ahead, you're maintaining alertness and survival focus. Your nervous system interprets this as potential threat assessment mode. But the moment you raise your gaze above the horizon, something profound shifts in your autonomic nervous system. This gesture signals safety and contemplation to your most primitive brain functions. It's telling your fight or flight response, we're secure enough to contemplate the infinite. In Hindu traditions, they developed this into the precise science of Tritaka, focused gazing, that activates what they mapped as the Ajna chakra, the command center behind your forehead. Not mystical poetry, but practical neurology. They discovered that sustained upward focus creates measurable changes in cerebrospinal fluid pressure and pineal gland activation. The Taoists took this even further with their practices of inner vision, teaching students to literally see energy patterns with closed eyes raised toward what they called the upper dantian. Indigenous vision quest protocols across North and South America follow nearly identical patterns. The seeker sits facing east, closes their eyes, raises their gaze, and maintains this position for extended periods. They're not waiting for external visions to appear. They're systematically shifting their brain into states where normally filtered information becomes consciously accessible. The same technique appears in Aboriginal Australian dreamtime practices, in African traditional healing ceremonies, in Celtic druidic traditions. Modern neuroimaging is now confirming what these cultures discovered through pure observation. When you raise your closed eyes in the specific angle these traditions describe, your brain shows increased activity in the posterior superior parietal lobule, the region responsible for spatial awareness and what neuroscientists call self-transcendent experiences. Your default mode network, which normally maintains your sense of separate self, begins to quiet. Meanwhile, your visual cortex starts generating coherent patterns even without external input. This creates what I call the silent chorus effect. When you practice these techniques, you're not just accessing your individual consciousness. You're connecting to an unbroken lineage of human beings across thousands of years who discovered the same pathways. The neurological patterns you generate resonate with the same frequencies that mystics and seers have been accessing since humans first looked up at the night sky and wondered about the nature of awareness itself. This isn't cultural appropriation, it's rediscovering universal human capabilities that transcend any specific tradition. Your nervous system contains the same hardware that allowed ancient Egyptian priests to map consciousness, Tibetan monks to achieve expanded states, and indigenous shamans to navigate non-ordinary reality. The techniques work because they're based on consistent principles of human neurology, not cultural beliefs. The reason every culture discovered this independently is simple: it works. When you systematically explore the relationship between eye position and consciousness states, you inevitably discover the same optimal angles and movements. It's like discovering fire or the wheel. Certain technologies emerge because they're based on consistent natural laws, not cultural accident. Your ancestors left you an inheritance more valuable than gold or land. They left you the keys to your own consciousness. These eye movement techniques represent thousands of years of human research into the nature of awareness itself. Every time you practice these methods, you're not just expanding your own consciousness, you're participating in humanity's longest-running scientific experiment. Now here's where everything we've explored transforms from ancient wisdom into modern practice. You've seen how the Eye of Horus maps consciousness itself, how shamans across continents independently discovered this same eye movement technology. But knowledge without application remains powerless. What I'm about to share is the distilled essence of Thoth's secret, refined for your daily reality. This isn't about retreating to a mountaintop or dedicating hours to meditation. The brilliance of this technique lies in its radical simplicity. You can activate your pineal gland sitting in traffic, before a difficult conversation, or in the middle of a stressful workday. The ancient masters understood something we've forgotten. The most profound technologies are often the most portable. Let me walk you through the three-step sequence that bridges your ordinary awareness with your deeper knowing. Each step builds on the previous one, creating a cascade of physiological changes that literally shift your brain into a different operating mode. Step 1. The conscious bridge. Your breath is the remote control of your nervous system. Most people breathe unconsciously, letting their autonomic responses dictate their internal state. But one intentional breath, just one, signals your entire system that you're taking conscious control. Here's exactly what you do. Place your tongue gently against the roof of your mouth. This completes an energetic circuit the Taoists called the microcosmic orbit. Now inhale slowly through your nose, feeling your ribcage expand fully, not just your belly rising, but your entire torso opening like an accordion. This isn't a deep breath, it's a complete breath. Feel the air reaching the very bottom of your lungs, then continuing to fill the middle and upper chambers. The exhale is where the magic happens. Release the air slowly through slightly parted lips, as if you're blowing out a candle that's just far enough away to require gentle persistence. As the air leaves, consciously release the muscular tension you've been carrying in your shoulders, jaw, and forehead. This single breath creates what neuroscientists call a pattern interrupt. Your sympathetic nervous system shifts from alert scanning to receptive awareness. Do this only once, but with complete intention. You're not trying to relax deeply, you're creating a doorway between your everyday mind and your deeper intelligence. Step 2. The antenna adjustment. Now comes the precise eye movement that activates your pineal gland. Keep your head completely still. This is crucial. You're not looking up by tilting your head back. You're redirecting your gaze internally. Slowly raise your eyes toward the center of your forehead, about an inch above the space between your eyebrows. Imagine you're trying to look at a spot inside your skull, roughly where your pineal gland actually sits. Your eyes should feel like they're pointing upward and slightly inward, converging on this internal point. Here's the critical balance. Create enough muscular effort to maintain this upward gaze, but not so much that you strain. Think of adjusting a satellite dish. You need precise positioning, not brute force. Your eyes might want to drift back to center. Gently guide them back to position without fighting. Hold this gaze for exactly 5 seconds with your eyes open. During these 5 seconds, you're literally redirecting energy that normally flows outward through your visual system back toward your brain's geometric center. Ancient texts describe this as pointing the antenna of consciousness toward its source. Many people feel a subtle pressure or tingling sensation in their forehead during this step. That's not imagination. It's increased blood flow and electromagnetic activity in the pineal region. You're mechanically stimulating a gland that's been dormant for most of your adult life. Step 3. Internal navigation. After 5 seconds, close your eyes while maintaining that same upward gaze. This is where most people stumble. They think closing their eyes means relaxing their eye muscles. Don't do that. Keep your closed eyes pointed toward that same internal spot, as if you're looking at something fascinating inside your own head. This transition from external to internal focus often intensifies whatever sensations you felt during step 2. The pressure might increase, you might notice tingling, or you could experience what feels like gentle pulsing in your forehead. Some people describe it as a warm density, others as a cool lightness. There's no correct sensation. Your pineal gland is as individual as your fingerprint. Now comes the most important part. Spend 30 seconds simply observing whatever arises. Not seeking, not expecting, just witnessing. Your job isn't to make something happen. It's to notice what's already happening when you create the right conditions. This is witness consciousness, the awareness that watches thoughts and sensations without getting caught in them. You might notice your internal dialogue commenting on the process, emotions shifting, or even visual phenomena behind your closed eyelids. Treat everything as interesting data, nothing more. Your logical mind will immediately start its dismissal campaign. This is silly. Nothing's happening. I'm making this up. Expect this resistance. It's actually a sign the technique is working. Your rational mind feels threatened when other forms of intelligence come online. Many people expect dramatic visions or mystical experiences. That's Hollywood spirituality. Real pineal activation often feels surprisingly subtle initially, a slight shift in mental clarity, a moment of unusual calm, or a brief sense of expanded awareness. These small experiences are actually profound neurological events. The beauty of this practice lies in its cumulative effect. Each time you perform this sequence, you're gradually decalcifying your pineal gland and strengthening neural pathways associated with intuitive knowing. What starts as a barely perceptible shift becomes increasingly reliable access to your deeper wisdom. Use this technique strategically throughout your day. Before making important decisions, activate your pineal gland and then ask your question internally. Notice the first response that arises before your analytical mind engages. When facing creative blocks, this 3-step sequence often unlocks solutions your rational thinking couldn't reach. Even during stress responses, this practice transforms your relationship with challenging situations. Instead of being hijacked by emotional reactivity, you create space for a more intelligent response to emerge. The profound truth is this: you're not learning something new, you're remembering something ancient. Your pineal gland has been waiting your entire life for you to consciously engage with it. What seemed like a nervous habit of looking upward during deep thought was actually your intuitive wisdom trying to guide you toward this exact practice. 3 steps, 35 seconds total. No equipment, no special location, no extended time commitment. Just conscious breath, precise eye movement, and witness awareness. This is how you transform scattered attention into focused consciousness, how you access the navigational system, Thoth encoded in human biology itself. Here's the thing nobody tells you about developing your intuitive abilities. You're waiting for the wrong signals entirely. Most people expect their intuition to work like their rational mind, delivering clear messages in complete sentences or dramatic Hollywood-style visions. They're sitting there after practicing the eye technique we covered, wondering why they haven't received some booming voice from the universe or seen mystical symbols floating in the air. This expectation alone destroys your ability to recognize what's actually happening. Real intuitive communication is nothing like that. It's subtle, fleeting, and operates on an entirely different frequency than your analytical mind. Think of it this way: your logical brain speaks in paragraphs, but your intuition communicates in whispers, single words, and sensations that last maybe 2 or 3 seconds before vanishing. When your pineal gland activates and you start receiving genuine intuitive information, it might come as a sudden, inexplicable sense of peace about a decision you've been struggling with. Or you'll feel these tiny shivers running up your spine when someone mentions something significant. Sometimes it's just warmth spreading across your chest. That's often your internal yes signal. Other times, a single word or image flashes through your mind so quickly you almost miss it. The ancient Egyptians understood this perfectly. Their hieroglyphs depicting the opened eye weren't showing dramatic revelations. They were representing these subtle, momentary glimpses of knowing that come and go like ripples on water. They knew that true wisdom arrives quietly, not with fanfare. But here's where most people sabotage themselves completely. The moment they feel one of these subtle sensations, they immediately try to analyze it. They grab onto that fleeting feeling with their logical mind and start dissecting it. What does this mean? Why am I feeling this? Is this real, or am I imagining it? The second you do this, you've destroyed the signal entirely. It's like trying to examine a snowflake in your hand. the heat of your analysis melts it instantly. This is why the Egyptian priesthood trained for years in what they called passive receptivity. Instead of analyzing every sensation as it occurred, they learned to simply collect the data without immediate interpretation. When you feel that chest warmth, that inexplicable knowing, or catch that flash of insight, your job isn't to understand it right away. Your job is to acknowledge it and let it exist without interference. I call this the thank you and accept protocol. When something feels significant, even if you can't explain why, you simply think, thank you, and accept that information. Without trying to decode it immediately, you're building a database of intuitive experiences that will reveal their patterns over time. Learning to interpret intuitive communications is exactly like learning star navigation. When you first look up at the night sky, you see random points of light scattered everywhere. Nothing makes sense. But as you observe patiently, night after night, those random points gradually reveal themselves as constellation patterns. The Big Dipper emerges. Orion becomes obvious. What seemed like chaos transforms into a reliable navigation system. Your intuitive development follows the same process. Those seemingly random feelings, fleeting thoughts, and subtle sensations are like individual stars. Initially meaningless, but through patient observation, they form recognizable patterns you can trust and follow. The biggest obstacle to this development isn't lack of ability, it's doubt. Doubt functions like static interference blocking a radio signal. When you second-guess every intuitive hit, questioning whether it's real or dismissing it as imagination, you're literally turning down the volume on your reception. Confidence, on the other hand, works like volume control. The more you trust these subtle communications, the clearer and stronger they become. This is why keeping an intuition journal becomes absolutely crucial. Start documenting every feeling, hunch, or subtle sensation, even when they seem completely meaningless. Write down that inexplicable uneasiness about taking a certain route to work. Note when you feel drawn to call someone for no logical reason. Record those moments when you just know something without being able to explain why. Then, and this is the key, review your journal entries weeks later. You'll be amazed at how many of those meaningless feelings proved remarkably accurate. That uneasiness about your usual route might correlate with the day there was a major accident. The urge to call someone might have reached them exactly when they needed support. These patterns become undeniable proof that you're receiving legitimate information. What's happening neurologically is fascinating. Each time you acknowledge an intuitive hit without immediately analyzing it, you're strengthening the neural pathways between your logical left brain and your intuitive right brain. You're literally building a bridge that allows these two different types of intelligence to communicate more effectively. The progression is gradual, but consistent. Those initial whispers gradually become clearer, more frequent, and undeniably accurate. What starts as subtle sensations develops into reliable guidance you can access consciously. The ancient texts describe this as the opening of the inner eye, not a single dramatic moment, but a steady awakening of dormant capabilities. This transforms how you navigate daily life completely. Instead of making decisions purely through logical analysis, weighing pros and cons endlessly, you begin incorporating this deeper knowing. You'll walk into job interviews already sensing whether this opportunity aligns with your path. You'll meet new people and immediately understand whether they're trustworthy, regardless of what they're saying. You'll recognize opportunities others miss because you're receiving information beyond what's visible on the surface. In relationships, this becomes incredibly powerful. You'll sense when someone needs support before they ask. You'll know when conversations are heading toward conflict and can navigate differently. You'll recognize authentic connections versus surface-level interactions immediately. For recognizing opportunities, strengthened intuition works like having advanced intelligence. You'll feel drawn to attend events that lead to significant connections. You'll sense which projects to pursue and which to avoid, often saving months of wasted effort. You'll know when timing is right for major decisions and when to wait. The key is treating this development like learning any sophisticated skill, with patience, consistency, and trust in the gradual process, rather than expecting immediate mastery. Your ancestors knew this technology intimately. They understood that developing these capabilities wasn't about dramatic spiritual experiences, but about reconnecting with subtle information streams that modern life has taught you to ignore. The eye technique we've covered activates the hardware. Learning this silent language teaches you how to interpret the software. Once you truly understand what we've been exploring together, something remarkable happens. That simple, unconscious act of looking upward, something you've done thousands of times without a second thought, becomes completely transformed. You can never go back to unconscious eye movement again. It's like learning to read all over again, except now you're reading the language of your own inner intelligence. Watch yourself over the next few days. Notice what happens during conversations when someone asks you a complex question. Your eyes will lift automatically, not to the ceiling, but to that specific upward angle we've been discussing. Pay attention when you're trying to remember something important, or when you're searching for the right words to express a difficult concept. There it is again, that involuntary upward glance. This is your internal operating system activating what I call deep information access mode. Your body already knows this. Your nervous system has been programmed with this wisdom for your entire life. The question is, have you been paying attention? Here's what's actually happening in these moments. Your conscious mind, with all its logical processing and analytical thinking, hits a wall. It can't find the answer through normal cognitive channels. So your subconscious mind, that vast intelligence that operates below the threshold of everyday awareness, takes over. It literally redirects your conscious attention away from external searching toward internal knowing. Think about this for a moment. Your body possesses an automatic mechanism that activates precisely when you need access to information beyond your normal thinking patterns. This isn't coincidence. This isn't random neural firing. This is sophisticated biological technology that's been operating in you since childhood, waiting for you to recognize its significance. I call these spontaneous upward glances the soul knocking on the door. Your deeper intelligence is trying to communicate with your conscious mind, but most people immediately suppress the gesture or correct it, thinking they should maintain eye contact or appear more focused. They're literally hanging up on their own inner wisdom. But now you know better. Now you have a completely different response protocol. When you catch yourself in that automatic upward glance, whether you're in a business meeting, having a deep conversation with a friend, or sitting alone trying to solve a problem, don't fight it. Don't immediately pull your eyes back down. Instead, accept the invitation. Take a sacred pause, draw in a slow, deep breath, and ask internally, what deeper information is trying to emerge right now? This simple shift transforms everything. Instead of unconscious reflex, you now have conscious collaboration with your own inner intelligence. That automatic eye movement becomes a constant reminder system, like a silent alarm going off multiple times throughout your day, waking you up from autopilot and inviting you into heightened awareness. The neurological retraining that occurs is profound. You're literally rewiring decades of unconscious habit. Every time you consciously work with this natural reflex instead of against it, you're strengthening new neural pathways. You're associating that automatic upward movement with awareness, intention, and receptivity to deeper knowing. Within weeks of practicing this, something extraordinary happens. That simple eye movement becomes like a quick access button to higher perception states. You don't have to go through the entire three-step activation process we covered earlier. Your system learns to recognize the gesture as a gateway, and the pineal gland responds almost instantly. This is true alchemy, not the medieval fantasy of turning lead into gold, but the real transformation of unconscious into conscious. You're taking what Thoth would call the coal in everyone's pocket and applying the pressure of consciousness to create a diamond. Most people walk around with this incredible technology completely dormant. They have dozens of opportunities every single day to access deeper states of awareness, and they miss every single one because they don't recognize the signals their own body is sending them. But you're different now. You're learning to read the subtle communications of your own nervous system. You're developing what ancient traditions called inner sight, not some mystical ability reserved for special people, but the natural capacity to recognize and work with the intelligence that's already operating within you. The broader implications of this transformation extend far beyond spiritual practice. When you begin consciously collaborating with these automatic responses, you're fundamentally changing your relationship with intuition, creativity, and problem solving. You're no longer dependent solely on logical analysis or external information sources. You have direct access to a deeper intelligence that can provide insights, solutions, and perspectives that your thinking mind simply cannot generate on its own. Remember where we started this journey together, with the recognition that something as simple as eye movement could be a key to unlocking dormant capacities. Now you're experiencing how that simple physical gesture becomes a bridge between ordinary consciousness and expanded awareness. You're discovering that the most profound spiritual technologies aren't hidden in ancient temples or secret teachings. They're built into your own biology, waiting for you to recognize their significance. This is the difference between reading about spiritual concepts and actually living them. Every upward glance becomes an opportunity. Every automatic eye movement becomes a doorway. You're not just learning information, you're transforming unconscious reflexes into conscious power tools that serve your highest development. The transformation is already beginning. Your awareness is already shifting, and your daily life is about to become a completely different experience. Here's the thing that will completely revolutionize how you understand this entire journey. The portal was never closed. You weren't missing some secret key, some ancient initiation, or decades of monastery training. The gateway to your deeper perception has been sitting right there in your skull, as accessible as your next breath, waiting for nothing more than your conscious attention. Think about how we've been conditioned to believe spiritual development works. Years of meditation retreats, secret teachings passed down through mysterious lineages, complex breathing techniques that take months to master, expensive courses promising to unlock your hidden potential. It's all designed to make you believe that accessing your own consciousness is complicated, rare, and requires external permission. But here's what Thoth understood that modern spiritual marketing doesn't want you to know. The most profound spiritual technology you possess operates through the most natural human gesture imaginable. When your eyes naturally drift upward, something your body has been doing automatically since birth, you're not experiencing a random reflex. You're witnessing your nervous system's built-in pathway to expanded awareness. This is the journey from complexity back to simplicity, learning something new but remembering what your body never forgot. Your pineal gland doesn't need to be activated by some external force, it needs to be consciously acknowledged while it's already doing what it was designed to do. The biological wisdom is already operating perfectly. You just haven't been paying attention. Consider this metaphor. You've been standing in front of an open door your entire life, convinced you needed to build a new entrance. The key was always in your hand, it was your willingness to look up and step through. Every time you dismissed that upward eye movement as tiredness or distraction, you were actually dismissing spirit knocking from within. Now that you understand what's really happening, everything changes. The next time you feel that natural impulse for your eyes to drift upward, you won't brush it aside. You'll recognize it as your consciousness calling your attention inward. You'll follow the impulse instead of fighting it. Hold that upward, gaze for a moment, breathe into the sensation, listen to the silence that follows. This is where most people miss the communication entirely. This P, entirely, fills. They're waiting for voices, visions, or dramatic revelations. But your deepest wisdom doesn't speak in words, it speaks in sensations, subtle shifts in awareness, quiet knowing that emerges from stillness. The most important messages your consciousness wants to deliver arrive through the silent language you learned to interpret in the previous sections of this understanding. What you're accessing isn't some mystical realm separate from your ordinary experience. You're tuning into information that's been broadcasting constantly the same way a radio receives signals that were always in the air. Your pineal gland has been receiving and processing these subtle frequencies your entire life. The difference now is conscious participation instead of unconscious reception. This understanding reveals something profound about human design. We carry ancestral codes engraved directly into our physiology, not metaphorically, but literally. The same way your heart knows how to beat and your lungs know how to breathe, your consciousness knows how to expand beyond ordinary perception. These aren't learned behaviors, they're inheritance patterns waiting for conscious activation through attention. Every ancient tradition that understood this truth built it into their practices. The upward gaze during prayer, the eyes rolled back in meditation, the 1,000-yard stare of shamans entering altered states. They weren't performing arbitrary rituals, they were consciously engaging with human neurology exactly as it was designed to function. But here's what makes this knowledge truly revolutionary. This is just the beginning, not the destination. Once you realize how simple it is to consciously connect with your pineal gland's natural function, you start to understand that every aspect of your consciousness operates with similar, elegant simplicity. Your intuition, your creativity, your ability to perceive beyond the obvious, all of it becomes accessible through the same principle of conscious attention to what's already happening. The portal to deeper perception, enhanced intuition, and access to your own innate wisdom was never locked. It's perpetually open. The only variable is how often you choose to look in the right direction, how frequently you step away from the external noise long enough to hear the internal silent music that's been playing your entire life. This transforms your relationship with every upward glance from this moment forward. What used to be unconscious reflex becomes conscious spiritual technology. What used to be dismissed as distraction becomes recognized as invitation. What used to be random eye movement becomes your most direct pathway to expanded awareness. The power was always there, the access was always available. The only thing that changed is your knowledge of how to consciously engage with what your body was already doing perfectly. You don't need permission from any external authority to look up and tune in. You don't need years of training to follow your natural eye movements with conscious attention. You don't need special circumstances or perfect conditions to breathe into the silence and listen to what emerges. This is your inheritance as a conscious human being. This is the technology you were born with. This is the portal that was never closed, waiting for nothing more than your willingness to step through with eyes wide open, looking in the direction your consciousness has been pointing you all along. If this video resonated with you and you truly grasped the profound simplicity of what's been shared here, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."